In sociology, what is considered to be the norm for one culture or group within a culture is not always going to be the same across the board. As we dive into aspects of the family and how it's different across different backgrounds, different cultures, and different aspects of sociology within those cultures, we will better understand the family as a whole. In this, I'm going to examine the idea of the family being a social system used for the social development of the offspring into the larger culture and the larger societies as a whole. This will start with the micro and expand all the way up to the macro and globalized worldviews of sociology and the family as the concept of the family is a small society, and the concept of globalization is the world society. In this, I'll be looking at Mexico, France, and Egypt as three different diverse countries with different uh, with different amounts of with different styles of families as well as social development for the offspring into the family and immersion into a more prominent society as a whole. When looking at Mexico and the structure of the family there, we see a very tight knit group. This group is used to define the culture as a whole. In Mexico, many of the individuals, the groups, the organizations, and the bodies work together to build a unified and almost sustained society and culture centered around being involved and invested in one's neighbor, which is very prominent within the Mexican household, as Mexicans tend to focus on not necessarily the hierarchy, but more so the connectedness of intergenerations, learning, protecting, and building together. A lot of Mexican families live together or blocks from each other. Where you grow up is usually where you'll be buried in the same area. And that's the thought process of being connected and building up your community and building up your culture. Moving across the way to France, the family size is usually smaller, and the rules are not as strict as the other two options on this list of countries that I've selected. When it comes to the French family and the French lifestyle as a whole, it is more laissez-faire. It is very relaxed. It is very grow and develop yourself. The self becomes the focus and less so the family. Not that the family isn't important, but the family is used at the base level to introduce one into socialized society and produce a list of norms, rules, and regulations one should be expected to follow. Going a little bit deeper, when we look at France, we understand that they require a more open relationship in the family. And though there's not really a religion associated directly with French culture like with Mexicans, it's more Catholic and Catholic based. Looking at the French, the culture of the house is based off of the parental units. Lastly on this list is looking at Egypt, and the Egyptians have a very harsh and stringent list of rules and expectations based off of religion, based off of social norms and values, and so on. When it comes to Egypt, it's more so based off of the demand of excellence. And what I mean by that is the demand for the culture to be the focus. Not necessarily any one aspect of the culture, but cultural success. Because the Egyptians tend to come from a place of pride and wanting to be prosperous. So the individual is less the focus, and more the focus is the culture and the community, which the family and the home tend to condition their offspring to focus on the straight and narrow opposed to any amount of deviation. Another factor that plays into that for the Egyptians is the fact that there's a lot of rich history of the Muslim faith being in most of Egypt. This reinforces solidarity, laws, structure, and other aspects of society being succinct and together. To wrap this discussion up, it's mostly to look at the diversity and the contrast between groups, bodies, and populations. Within the social world, if we look and understand the concept of globalization, we also understand that the overall society of the world is a large family in one aspect or another. But like all families, you have to focus on the immediate. And for a society to be prosperous, each of the immediate families within a society have to condition their offspring to follow the rules, guidelines, norms, values, and cultural beliefs of that culture and acclimate them accordingly.